good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. I can't seem to help. It's like you cast a spell. I'll keep loving you. You don't love me too. But I won't cry it. I'll just sing a lullaby. You moved on already. I know I gotta stay strong. You said that you love me forever, but I guess that's gone. And I can't seem to hide all this pain that I feel inside. But that's okay, I'll just sing a lullaby. Listen, I can't seem to help. No. Oh, it's like you cast a spell. Can't believe we're through. You win and you lose. But I won't cry, I'll just sing a lullaby. Listen. You moved on already and I know I gotta stay strong. You said that you love me forever, but I guess that's gone. And I can't seem to hide all this pain that I feel inside. But that's okay, I'll sing a lullaby. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm back again. This is MCM, and this is You're Probably Right podcast. Now, I know you're probably just listening to, I'm calling it my new opening music. It's really short. It was written by my daughter, and it was sung by me and her backup. I just think it's a cool song. I love hearing it. I know I'm listening to my own self, but I mean, there's not much reverb. There's not much stuff done to it at all, really. And I just think it's a nice song. So that's why it's there. It doesn't really probably align with this episode particularly, but I think it's a cool song. So, I mean, if you feel the same way, maybe let me know, okay? Anyhow, you have stepped in it again. Stepping it again. It's like stepping it again. You in it with me, MCM, and this is You're Probably Right podcast. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. And if you do learn something, it's a plus. I am not a professor or professing professor of anything except a professing Christian. But the views that I give on this podcast tend to be my own. And when it does dawn on my thick skull, at times I might incorporate some scripture, but I always encourage you to look at the Bible for yourself. Read the Bible for yourself. Hear someone who knows how to teach the Bible and someone who stays biblical and doesn't come up with a whole bunch of fairy tale-ish stories that are not in the Bible. And if you want to know what's in the Bible, you have to read it. You have to sit under somebody reading the actual 66 books of the Bible. Now, most old school people would say they go by the old King James, maybe the King James, New King James, the American Standard. These are the Bibles that I know of that are virtually the same, except for the American Standard. I think they try to do more of a word to word proper translation. Like they didn't substitute things. I think they tried to do it properly, as far as I know. But I mean, I'm not saying that the New King James and Old King James weren't, because there was more of that Elizabethan type of language in the Old King James, and like the thous and thys, and and shout not, and all that kind of stuff, where it's probably difficult for a lot of people. I'm kind of used to it because that's just what I knew of growing up. But anyway, I'm probably not even explaining that properly. The point is, if you want to know what the Bible says, if you can read, start reading. Start reading the New Testament, start reading the Old Testament, go right through. Look for Bible believing people, Christians who do expository preaching. So they're not bringing their own type of stories into the Bible. They are literally talking about what was historically said and in context of what was said. The Bible explains itself, so we don't need people trying to say that this was meaning that instead of this when it said this in the first place, and all that stuff. And hopefully you get what I mean. If you don't, talk to a local minister, maybe a Baptist minister, or at least a Protestant minister, maybe a Reformed, kind of a John MacArthur type, R.C. Sproul type of church is the best way that I can put it. The denominations are kind of all over these days. Ministers have come and gone who have taught many great things, and then they've failed in different ways. So sometimes you kind of hesitant to even put out names. But as far as I know, those two names stand the test of time, although there are certain people who just don't like them at all for whatever reason. Anyhow, a different podcast today. But I know I always say that. The title of today's podcast and the number, check it out. We're at 190, y'all. Amazing. Should you share your high school transcript with your kids? It's interesting, right? I know it's about as interesting as why does my voice sound deeper tonight? Whatever. I'm sure some people like it anyway, right? I told you my dream job would have been to be on radio, to tell you the truth. If it wasn't an athlete, which it obviously wasn't, then my second choice, for whatever reason, maybe just the desire to be heard, or just the desire to be able to converse with someone who can't see you and only hears your voice and only hears the things that you have to say. They can't judge your facial expression. They can't see you. I mean, if anything, you're hiding behind a microphone, far, far and away. I don't know. There's just something cool about it and playing music at the same time. But that's just me. Okay. Welcome to episode 190. Now that we are 9 minutes in of your Probably Right podcast. Today we're diving into a thought-provoking topic. Sharing your high school transcript with your kids. But it's more than just just grades. It's about opening the door to real conversations about life. And I understand most kids will say, it's different now. Nobody does it that way. We have ChatGPT now. We have AI now. We have so many things that you didn't have growing up. I mean, and I'm talking to parents who, starting, but I mean, depending on when you're listening to this, you could be a parent who went to high school before YouTube, went to high school before there was such a thing as an iPhone, or before there was a thing such as a cell phone, besides those huge brick ones. It's more about conversations about life, effort, unexpected twists and turns that shape our personal journeys. Can transparency about our past help children navigate their futures with more clarity, confidence, or does it risk creating some unnecessary pressure or, who knows? just thinking about it, and I kind of wish that I actually opened up my podcast, my actual transcript right here on my podcast. I actually wanted to do it. I literally wanted to put it on a screen and go over with the mouse and kind of pinpoint to different areas. But I mean, if this becomes one of my more popular episodes, then I think one day that's exactly what I'll do. And who knows? I'm saying this now. It's way back in 2025. And as I said, usually I don't do this because I believe my podcast is evergreen. And I think it's still going to be evergreen after this. But who knows? Could be ever done. It's January 23rd. Actually, yeah, I won't say, but important person in my life's birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday. You know who you are. Yes, January 23rd today, 3rd today, and it is actually 2025. So I'm going to just try to answer a few questions, and maybe I'll come up with some good ideas because, again, I told you this wasn't really my idea. My idea was really to actually sit there and go through my actual transcript while I do this podcast, pinpointing certain specific points in my transcript, which, there's going to be some grades that I'll like, did I really get a 76 in history in grade 10? I don't remember that at all. Or, maybe I'll remember the one time that I had to actually go to summer school to upgrade a class early on in my high school career, which never happened again. And I can talk about what happened, or when I was graduating, how I'd take grade 9 typing because I didn't have much else to do. And I was really excited to compete with these girls at the front of the classroom in typing. And then it got to a point where I just didn't care. And I kind of cruised the rest of the way to a cool 60 something when I started more like high 80s. But that is what it is. So we're not doing it that way, but who knows? One day, you never know, it might happen. So let's see if I can figure this. Okay, here we go. So first question, we like to just get right into questions. How can sharing your transcript foster a stronger parent-child connection? I believe, if you can, now you have to weigh all of your options as an adult, as a parent, if it really makes sense for your kids to see your transcript. Now, it might be your wife's, maybe your husband's, maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's a grandparent. Like, many of us have kept ours. I mean, I know back in the day, like my parents couldn't have shown me anything from school. They came from Jamaica. And I was lucky to see funny enough, after my father passed away, I was lucky enough to see my grandfather's signature. That's all I got. And another grandparent's marriage certificate, I think, or something like that. One of my cousins had it. And, that sort of stuff. But I know factually, years later, I have a copy of my transcript in a leather case in my home, and I could literally go over, I'm young enough to still go over my transcript and tell my kids certain things about my high school career and what happened that year. There's many that I can't, but I mean, there are at least, I think, 32 to 34 credits here in Canada. That's how we did it in Ontario, or how we used to do it. And I'm sure that many of those classes I can remember what happened. I can remember if I earned my credit, or if I was pushed along, or if I was ripped off, or if I excelled. Also, what I was doing when I was getting those marks. The highest average I ever had in school, I believe, was in grade 11, and I had actually played football in the fall when school started. Then I played basketball in the winter, I was very active in different happenings around the gym. The gym teacher was my teacher. I actually think both of them were. And I ended up, yes, football, basketball, and then in the spring I played soccer like I did the year before, and basketball the year before as well. And that year where I had played the most sports, although I was planning to add swimming to my repertoire the next year, but I didn't because I moved, which really sucked. But yeah, grade 11 was my best year in high school. And then we moved. I never played a sport ever again in high school. And needless to say, my marks went differently. The outlook of where I was going in college went differently. A lot of things went differently just from that move. It changed my life as a learner. Who knows what could have happened? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. But I really look back and I wonder, it's, just making a move. I can say that I moved probably 25 minutes more northeast from where I grew up, near a school called Victoria Park High School. The reason why I use that one, Victoria Park High School, I think it is now, or Collegiate Institute by now. Back then it was VPSS. We were considered in North York, but we were right on the border of Scarborough near a mall called Parkway Mall, by a Parkway Bible Church, near Annunciation Catholic Church. Senator O'Connor High School was in that area. Wexford was a little bit higher. Like, these are the people who from those areas. I'm just saying those, like Ranchdale, Roywood, were schools around there. I went to a school called Brookbanks, and then I went to a school called Donview. No, I didn't go to Donview. I refused to go to Donview. I went to Milford, which later changed its name to Mill Valley after we left in grade 8 and went to grade 9, which we were the first grade 9 class at Victoria Park Secondary School, which was, I think, in 1988, way back then, I think. My numbers might be a little bit off, but yeah, that's how it was. So just showing you that it's more than just showing your child your transcript. It's whether you can connect the dots of what was happening in your life at that time, and whether or not your child will even listen long enough for you to hash it all out. Because just now, me veering off into the different schools and the different moves, like when our family actually moved out of the area, and I actually tried to fight it out and stay for most of the year, which I did, but then I think I left after that for the grade 12. But I just think life probably would have changed and turned differently. So I'm saying, do you have time to do this with your kid? Will you remember the important integral position you were in high school? Because I do honestly remember talking to my kids about my transcript one time. I think they just looked at the mark and they went, whoa. For someone who seemed like he valued education and valued their marks, my marks were poop. Were horrible. You know what I mean? But and I didn't go actually over just those two little stories that I just told you in a timely manner. It matters. It so matters that I moved. When did I move? I actually moved the summer that I was going into grade 11. So the year that we moved to this city, which is Markham. I'll just keep it straight. About the year that my family moved, we moved to Markham, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, still in the GTA. But it was grade 10 summer, so it was going into my grade 10 year. Going into my grade 11 year. Grade 10 was over. It was June. Was it June? Yeah, I think it was June. So by the time I was ready to go back to high school in grade 11, I had already moved. So not only was I playing 3 sports, but I was also living in an area where I had to walk about 20 minutes from the bus, 20 minutes to the bus. There was a bus that has started to go into Scarborough, obviously, since. Those of you know the area. But now, back then, I had to walk it. So I had so much traveling to do. Sometimes it would take me upwards of 40 to 50 minutes to get to high school. And I still had my best year there. And things went downhill after that. But, it is what it is. All right, so I rambled for 21 minutes now, and I haven't even got to one question. Hopefully this is going to help you try to, suss it out in your own mind, whether it makes sense. But that's how I believe, just one question, how can sharing your transcript foster a stronger parent-child relationship? It's like, it allows you to be honest as well. Sometimes kids don't get where you're coming from. Sometimes you just saying, I went to high school too, isn't good enough. Or I'm Canadian too, and I went to the high school system. I know they'll say the school system has changed and we have this and we have that, but it's still the same people. It's well, not all of them, but many people are descendants of those who have taught before, or many people have been taught by the people who used to teach before, and now they're teachers. There's still some legacy, there's still some history, there's still some connection to the history of those who teach, who were taught here. And of course, those who weren't and don't. What lesson from your academic journey could serve as a teachable moment? And I think that one where I was just talking about, the fact that I still had to travel. Sometimes it honestly felt like an hour. So it could have even been an hour sometimes. Sometimes as we get older, our memories don't, serve us well. I remember I was checking. Here's another thing. I was always telling my kids it took me, I think I said it took 30 to 35 to 40 minutes to get from my home to the junior high school that I chose to go to, because I was bullied. And of course, that's in my earlier episodes where I was bullied, not physically, but mentally, and just pushed around and, sometimes pushed out of the so-called groups. Our group, really cool group that was formed in elementary school. Teachers were no help. It was horrible for me. So what happened was in grade 6, after grade 6, we go to a junior high back in the day. So we would go from kindergarten to grade 6, and then we would go from grade 7 to grade 9, and then we go to high school, which used to be 10, 11, 13 back in the day. Some people would finish in 12. But when I got to high school, because they changed it back to how it was in the old days, where there was grade 9 at high school, that's exactly what they did. They started grade 9, and so my junior high experience ended after 2 years. So it was just grade 7, grade 8. And then we went to high school with the kids that were older by a year than us. And I think they really, really hated that. In other words, we went grade 7, grade 8, and then us and the grade 9s at my junior high school went to high school at the same time. So it kind of ticked them off because we almost got the same experience. We weren't really, I guess as they would say, freshmen, because the people above us were freshmen. So they were, the grade 11s, 12s, and I think still then 13s didn't know the difference. Many of us were the same size, so we didn't really get like the ribbing and possible hazing and initiations that probably most grade 9s would get nowadays or before, because the grade 10s were also punks, if you understand what I'm saying. So just stuff like that. Again, if you have a child that will sit down and listen, and maybe you don't, maybe you will literally have to hash it out with maybe somebody who knew you, or maybe you'll have to, get a little episode going of your own podcast where one day that they can just sit down and let you speak. Because I know that this world is done in a way now where everybody needs to say it in about 32 seconds or about 22 words. Like, everything is give the short form. If you get caught up in one of those maybe Facebook Reels or TikToks or Instagram videos that last about maybe 30 seconds to a minute or something like that, everybody will give you the answer as quick as they could possibly give you, and it might sound like the most life-changing thing that you have ever heard, but unfortunately so will the next thing that comes on in the next 30 seconds. And by maybe 12 videos down, you'll forget the one that seems so life-changing, and everything just seems to be jumping on top of everything, so nobody has time to really talk about something or really listen to someone say something. You know what I mean? So that's where I think it could also help you in that way. Could sharing your transcript serve as motivation or inspiration for your child? Yeah, it could, for sure. It could be motivation as to be better or be worse. My whole thought process for mine, knowing that mine was bad, mine was just mediocre to bad in most cases. I think, honestly, my highest mark was probably a 92, and it was in gym, and I think the teacher liked me, and I think that I could have gotten an actual higher mark, to tell you the truth, because there wasn't nothing that I didn't do or wasn't good at. But for some reason, I guess it just wouldn't look good. I just think that there was probably even people who even had better, maybe 3 or 4 people better, and he just couldn't give everybody 98 or whatever it is for whatever reason. Guess it would just be too good. Again, that was grade 11, and that was one of my coaches. And I was a pretty good player. So anyhow, but just going back down, memory lane, so being transparent, it could encourage them to set goals. In my case, it might say, "Oh, okay, so if I don't study, I get your job. If I don't study, I get your car or your house or your items or your life or lifestyle. Maybe I want to work a little harder, And I mean, there's obviously going to be people who did really, really well in high school and then didn't do anything, didn't even maybe go to college or university. For Americans, that would be like junior college or university, and their job sucks. Maybe there's some explaining Lucy needs to do. Maybe you could have, but maybe you got pregnant. Maybe you got married. Maybe your parents died. Maybe you found out you were adopted. Maybe your house burned down. Maybe you got attacked. Maybe you attacked somebody else. Maybe you robbed a store. Maybe you became a Christian. Maybe you became something else. Maybe you wanted to backpack around Europe and therefore lost all desire to learn. Maybe there's a physical accident. Do you understand? Like, there's so many things that could encourage your child, with your transparency, because you look back on it and there's many of us who were very competitive with our marks. Maybe we wouldn't want our kids to do better. Who knows? Or maybe our kids have already been doing better and we've been ripping into them every 5 seconds, saying about how much better they could do or how much better you did. And now it's going to be difficult for you to go back on what you said because you were actually horrible in school. Or maybe you had a disability and you don't really want to talk about it with your kids. Or maybe you were somehow able to skirt around having a so-called learning disability and eventually, like I did, just pretend it wasn't there and just go through school without the assistance that supposedly it was supposed to give you. But that's just me. Next question. What conversations can arise from sharing your educational background? And again, I just think sometimes, you look at your parents and for all your parents have always been old. As long as you've been around, right? 20 was old, 25 was old, 37 was old to have you, whatever it is. So sometimes when you bring yourself back to where they were, debase yourself a little bit to just remind them, let them know, maybe even show them an old picture of you so they can really picture this kid got these marks and he now has this life. Maybe hard work paid off. Maybe tragedy struck and changed your life. There's so many things. And I think these are interesting things to tell children. And, when I think about it and whether or not maybe someone would ask me whether I got these stories, I got little bits and pieces from my dad, nothing from my mom, even though my mom was the one who was more talkative and saying stuff. She never really talked about her schooling with me in any real sense where there was anything I could gain. Back in the day, people used to say, I did this and I did that. They didn't tell you the time when they cheated. They didn't tell you the time when they got 0 on a test and got a spanking. Like back in the day, they used to sugarcoat everything. It felt like there was very few older people, I think, that were giving up the goods on their failures in school, unless their failures turned into this amazing triumph. Nobody talked about being mediocre. Everybody always wants to talk about their excelling in so-called black excellence with all this DEI stuff that still is lying around. Here's another one. Could showing your transcript create unnecessary pressure or unrealistic comparisons? Of course. If you're a person who is gifted and got straight 90s, or maybe you were a person who were gifted and went to a gifted school and all hell broke out in your life and nothing ever worked out after that, or maybe you're a person who just did very, very well and was an overachiever every year in school, and now you have a child that's fighting to get C's, it might not be that great. Because even if, let's just say you were a person who was supposedly gifted or getting, high 90s as an average, and you ended up with a horrible job, then maybe you have a kid that's getting only C's. They're going to say, well, if you couldn't do it, what makes you think I can? So that's when I think you'd have to judge it and see, like, what kind of a child do I have? Is it even possible? Or do you have the ability to break it down as to exactly what happened? Because in our lives, in most cases, and I would say, and I throw the percentages out there, which don't really mean anything, and people do it all the time just to convince people, so they throw out numbers. But I would say, I won't even give a percentage, I'll say in many cases, there is a reason for what transpired in our lives during and after school, and representing, the marks that we ended up getting also, I think. That was a short answer. 7. Do different generational challenges make transcripts comparison irrelevant? Yes, it's difficult. Like, for instance, back in my day, back in the olden days, we had basic, general, and advanced. There was also enriched. And this is just in a regular high school. So we're not talking about the enriched program or anything. We're just talking about there was just these levels that you could take in school. And when I got right into it, and I wish I did have my transcript here, I think I was told not to do it. Not to take advanced, which would be like your courses that are getting you ready for university and whatever school board you kind of go to, and in other words, you're taking advanced classes because you're not headed to community college or to get a bachelor's degree, or you're not planning on just jumping out of school and going to work at the grocery store. You're planning to go to a university, a proper accredited university, if not an Ivy League, if you're, so lucky to, blessed to. So, it really, really depends. So, Yeah, there could be different generational challenges and saying, like there is no enriched now. There is no advanced and basic. It's called locally developed. Um, I can't remember what the other academic and whatever the other one was called. So I was right middle range for most of the time, but I did start at the beginning at advanced, the highest level. Well, besides enriched they didn't even have enriched for everything. But most kids who were going to university took advanced this and advanced that. How might privacy concerns play a role in this decision? I don't know. Maybe you do need to keep your history private. I don't know. I would assume most parents don't need to keep their history a secret unless something really, really happened that would have dictated that it made sense to do that. But I think most people could share, I would say. But that's just, my short-sighted. I'm sure somebody like Jordan Peterson or maybe Joe Rogan or, someone smarter than me, Wes Huff or something, maybe, they could probably tell you exactly why they feel that it might make sense to do it or why there would be some sort of privacy concern. I don't know. Do you have the same name as your kid like I do? Like, I don't know. It wouldn't really help because there's years on these things. Not to mention on my transcript, they had the wrong birth date. And I don't know if that's ever going to jump back and bite me. But I was so lazy. I can't remember what it was. They told me to do something simple like send my birth certificate to the board or whatever it is. And at that point, I just wanted to graduate and get out of there because I could care less, honestly, what my transcript said. As far as my birthday was concerned. Could sharing your academic struggles unintentionally lower their expectations? Yeah, of course. If you had difficulty, maybe they think they're going to have difficulty. Maybe you went nowhere, so they'll feel like they can't go anywhere. So, maybe just addressing your past, you might feel that, might set a lower standard for your kid and say, oh, I can only get a 60 now that I've seen my dad only get 60 or C's or C minuses, like who am I? My dad's so smart or my mom's so smart. Why am I going to be able to, do better than they did? So, you never know. It could cause all kinds of stuff. And that's why you have to really be able to gauge it. I think the average person will be able to do this. And I believe in most cases, I think if the average person does it, it probably will be beneficial. And last question. Is it better to lead by example rather than past records? Yeah, of course it's better to lead, addressing things that are going on right now in your life and showing, how you're applying yourself now. But to tell you the truth, a lot of kids are short-sighted. A lot of kids can't see it. They can't see you as a young person who used to have dreadlocks and used to wear free-flowing dashikis or nose piercing. Maybe they see you as the lawyer with perfect cut hair and, $1,200 suits and a Birkin. Yeah, like, what I mean? Or whatever the case is. So they're not going to, sometimes who we are in many cases as adults, we're nothing like what we were back then. So you might not want to, it might not make sense for everyone, but I think in many, many, many cases, I think showing the records, if you're able to explain the situations and you have a child that is one who will actually listen and take in what you're saying. If you have a child who right now their favorite thing right now is to be volatile and they have no control in their volatility, which is in many cases, or maybe they're just very emotional, or maybe they just really, 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 really don't care. They might chip in and out. Their mind might chip in and out, and they might not get the point of your messages, and it could mess them up. So anyhow, I'm just trying to let you know, really be careful with this. But I think this could actually be a thing. And I know many parents have probably tried this, but maybe they didn't really think the whole thing through. Maybe you thought it through a lot more than than I did. If you did, if your provider offers you an area where you can comment, please comment and let me know what you think. And yeah, that's about it. I would say what I could say is ultimately the decision of sharing your transcript with your child isn't about showcasing grades. It's about sharing the journey behind them, the triumphs, the setbacks, and the lessons learned can serve as a powerful tool to help your child understand that success is rarely a straight path. Whether you choose to share it or not, the most important thing is fostering open conversations that guide them towards growth and self-awareness. Anyhow, y'all, this is MCM. I am going to let you go. Where am I right now? Oh, just about 40, 42, 43 minutes, right? Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right, then. See you next time. Who knows what the episode will be in 191. Anyhow, take care, y'all. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, before I go, remember, if you have any questions you want to ask or maybe have a topic that you want me to talk about, you can email me at yprpodcast@gmail.com. Take care. Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 dogs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.